Hello again everyone, Melth here, with part 2 of my guide video about how I reached level 12 in Act 2. The first run to do so as far as I'm aware. Now this will build upon, of course, part 1 of this video, but also upon my previous guide video about how to get to level 11 before fighting Ketheric. There are a lot of techniques that were the same across both runs. I didn't want to repeat myself for hours, so check that video out too if you want to see the foundation of how this works and learn more about the basics of how XP works in this game. Now, as before, this is probably best thought of as a menu of options from which you can pick and choose the XP boosting techniques that do or don't fit your run and your roleplay goals and things like that. As before, I'll be color coding the tips. Things that should have no real harm and are pretty easy to justify will be in green. Things that are hard to justify from a roleplay perspective but don't have any mechanical downsides to doing will be in yellow. And things that have a mechanical downside to doing will be in red as we go along here. So, where we left off last time, we had just arrived at Last Light Inn, using a new technique that I'd found to get the usually bugged exploration XP here. And we'd also taken out Marcus's giant army of crawling claws for a massive chunk of XP too. We are at this point level 7 and about 2/3 or so, but that's really good because we haven't been at all to Rosymorn Monastery or to Grymforge or to pretty much anywhere in Act 2 yet, so we are way ahead of schedule already. Now, of course, the reason that we haven't been to some of those areas, like Rosymorn Monastery or Grymforge, is that we are trying to delay exploration XP until we are higher level, because exploration XP is the only kind of XP that scales up with your level. So the higher level you are when you go into a place like Rosymorn, the more XP you get. Therefore, we want to get all the non-exploration XP available in the game that we can before going to those places. Luckily for us, pretty much the entirety of the Shadowcursed lands is free of exploration XP. The only exceptions are the Gauntlet of Shar and Moonrise Towers. There's a few things to talk about in the Shadowcursed lands. Let's go through those things first. Now, as I have said before, you don't need a guide video to tell you that the best way to get XP is to go out and do all the quests and fight all the monsters and whatnot. That should be the default baseline assumption. I'm here to tell you about ways to get extra XP above and beyond those things by doing quests in unusual ways or times when diplomacy is more valuable than combat and stuff like that. This is one of those cases with this quest with He Who Was. The ideal outcome here is to begin his quest, go out and get the ledger from the tavern, then come back here and start doing the interaction with interrogating Madeline and having her punish herself.
Intrepidation.
So we go through the dialogue till we get to this point where we can tell her to stab herself while she's possessing his body. And he loves that. But it turns out he's really particular about the number of stabs. 2 is great, he loves that. But we go ahead and we tell her to go for 3 at this point. So now he will go ahead and attack us and we kill him and his stupid bird. And compared to the conventional approach, that nets us about plus 230 XP. Though, depending on what your baseline approach for this quest was already, how much of a difference it makes will vary, of course. Now, one XP generating technique that I didn't actually know about when doing this run, and I'm coming back to record now, relates to this hollow armor in the stinky pit near the morgue in the Shadowcursed lands. It turns out if you're in stealth mode, and you kill this guy with a scroll of Scorching Ray, or just casting Scorching Ray, you can actually get some extra shadows to spawn out of the armor. There's supposed to be just 1, but I've gotten up to 3 this way. There we go. So that is worth 150 extra XP, because each shadow is worth 75. So a really nice XP bounty there. Also, as you're going through the Shadowcursed lands, make sure that you talk to death Malus Thorm and Thisobald Thorm. I find that quite boring compared to fighting them, but it's worth inspiration for the Dark Urge to talk them to death rather than fight them. One important thing that you're going to want to do at some point is knock out all the Harpers and Flaming Fist and so forth here at Last Light Inn. You should do that carefully though, and if you want to avoid losing favor with certain shopkeepers like Damon, you can do things like pick him up for now, and then while you're carrying him, teleport to somewhere like Moonrise Towers. They have a safe waypoint there. He won't be in the Shadow Curse, and now he won't be mad at you because he won't see what's happening at Last Light Inn. Now, This is already part of my default assumptions. I'm more just telling you this in terms of getting XP up front, rather than this being any kind of new XP source per se. But we're trying to max out all the XP we can get before we go into the exploration areas. One important thing to say is, do not do the Isobel fight yet. Save that. That's important for XP maximization. Just take a chance, knock people here out, then if you fast travel away to some other zone and back, they'll be fine. And other than the shopkeepers having lowered attitude with you, there's no downside or anything that I can find. So, as a reminder, a key part of our strategy for getting to level 12 in Act 2 is we must delay all of the level-based exploration XP as long as possible, because that is the only kind of XP in the game that scales up in any way with your party level. So ideally we do all of that at party level 11 to truly max it out. In practice, some of it must be done before then, because we can't get to level 11 without the XP that is in some of these areas. Now, I have found tricks and workarounds, most of which I've talked about already, to get almost all the XP in the game without going through any of those exploration XPs that scale with your level. There are just 4 problem spots. So there is Moonrise Towers, though that one is weird, as I've talked about before. Several things can just make you ineligible to ever get the exploration XP here. For one thing, as far as I can tell now, if Saza is alive, there's no solution, you can't get the XP. For me also, if Will has ever been recruited, you can't get the XP. Some commenters have said they can get it to work. I've tested a lot, I cannot ever get it to work. I can't explain why that is and what the difference would be so far. And also, if Minthara was spared in Act 1 by knocking her out, then you'd better be careful. Okay, so Moonrise Towers is one of the 4 areas. Gauntlet of Shar is another one. That's pretty straightforward. All of the combat is gated behind a medium-sized exploration zone. Moonrise is large, by the way. One large zone. Then there is Grymforge. As I said before, never go through the rear entrance into Grymforge. That gives you nothing and locks you out of the medium-sized zone that there is to get. And then there's also Rosymorn Monastery / Githyanki Creche. That is complicated. There are a lot of different exploration XP zones in there. I have found some tricks to squeeze out more XP without exploring, that I'll show you momentarily here. But the Githyanki Creche, you must go through an exploration XP zone to get into. So, fundamentally, those 4 zones. So there's really no logical order to talk about things in here. It's hard to make sense of what the ideal course is. I'm going to show you in one go, to keep them in one place basically, all my tricks for Rosymorn and the Githyanki Creche. But for perfect optimization, you want to do the Rosymorn stuff first, then probably come back here at hopefully level 9 at that point, and get your exploration XP here in the way that I'll show you, and then go back to the Githyanki Creche proper. But I'll put my tricks in one place, then we'll come back here for how to do the Moonrise Tower stuff. Now, besides getting extra XP, which is obviously important for this kind of run, one thing that is also important, but less obvious, is simply getting the same XP earlier in the game is quite valuable to us. Because that will make it easier for us to be able to get to high level before we are forced to explore some areas. One example of early XP you can get sometimes, but not all the time, is knocking out Esther. Sometimes that won't disrupt her quest. Other times, I don't know why, that will count her as being dead and you can't do the quest after that. So there, she's knocked out. We got her 75 XP, and we still have the Steal the Githyanki Egg quest. Rosymorn Monastery, one of my favorite parts of the game. Very beautiful, very memorable, full of fun encounters, full of lots of XP and lots of powerful items. But it's also full of exploration XP zones, and it's really hard to get the battles and so forth in here without exploring more than we want to before level 11, and thereby losing potential XP. Now, this gate scene here is pretty interesting. If you walk down the main path and go around that corner, you'll be pulled into a cutscene where the Githyanki are torturing the hobbits, they kill one of them, and they bring the rest of them inside. Now, my previous best move was to have a mage hand or the like throw a bomb over there at those guys, basically, and that could take out some of the hobbits. Or alternately, you can go through the Kobold room in there, get over to be looking out through some stained glass windows here at the group over there, and blast them all with one spell from there. But the trouble with that is, the Kobold room has exploration XP in it, which we don't really want to get that way. So what I recommend you do instead is a new technique. So instead, go up these vines, go across here, jump in, fight the Grymishkas, and then walk to this door. At that point, have someone who can cast a powerful spell like Fireball drink an invisibility potion and go out alone onto the balcony.
Never wanted the easy path.
We walk over to about here where we're overlooking them, and then we need to find the one pixel where we can stand in and fireball the lot of them down there to blow them up. I find sometimes that getting rid of the extra rows of the command bar is helpful. There we go. That looks right. So it blows them up. They all die. We get 300 XP. And that's out to 95 more than my previous technique, and also lets us save the Kobold Exploration XP for later on. So, next up, let's think about the eagles up on the roof. For some reason, the roof is its own exploration XP zone, and we don't want to go up there just to fight a few eagles. We want to save that until level 11. I found a way to do that. You'll need someone who can fly and has a ranged attack, such as an air elemental. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start just leaving some people scattered around the edges that are under where the roof is up above. So we walk someone over hereabouts, and maybe we'll leave Karlach on this side. Just kind of scattering people around, covering all sides of that roof. Let's leave perhaps Will over there. Come on, air elemental buddy. You fly and teleport. I know you can get across that gap.
What to do? Breathe deep and move.
So, I did at long last find one and only one place from which you can aggro the eagles without going up into the roof exploration zone. And it's from up here. So we fly up here. And now one other reminder, make sure you're on Tactician difficulty at this point if you're changing that up. The eagles can summon additional eagles based on the difficulty mode. You'll fight the most on Tactician. So here we are. We should be able to see one of the eagles over there and bombard it. And that will aggro them. So it's just yelling for help, and then we can start pulling our comrades into the battle. So if we fly down there, that should bring in our main character, who is somewhere in this area.
All's well that ends.
There we go.
Bad as it could have.
And then we will fly over this way. And that should bring in Will and Karlach. Then we'll teleport over this way. And I guess we can't quite get to Gale, but that's fine. We can pull him in pretty soon. The important thing about all that is just that now when eagles get summoned all around the roof, they'll all be close enough to someone that they'll be aggroed, rather than just losing interest and not doing anything, and then being stuck up there where we can't actually engage them. Alright, let's run over here and see if we can pull Gale in too. There we go, Gale is in. And then Karlach get back to her starting position to make sure that we are watching all sides eagles can spawn in from. Make sure to save the Ancient Eagle, that's the important one. So now finish his summoning, and we should see 5 pop up. If you see 5, that means you've done your job successfully. So, with the eagles down and the Githyanki and the hobbits dead outside the gate, do not go through the gate. That has a big exploration XP zone that we want to save if we can. Instead, we now want to deal with the kobolds without getting the kobold room XP. The way I found to do that is to use Minor Illusion to lure them out. So let's have most people go over hereabouts.
They'll catch a break.
And Will can walk over toward the broken window, and he can then start doing minor illusions to summon multiple kobolds to this area. So there's some of them coming. Make sure not to put them too far into the room or they will themselves trigger the exploration XP because they count like a summoned unit going in there, basically. There we go. That pulled them in. A really convenient way to handle them is just to put a cloud of daggers there and then just walk away and let them come over and die on their own. They're each worth a ludicrous 75 XP, and they'll just walk into that blender, turn after turn. Now, that will notably knock out the guys that are in the barrels, of course. You can come back for them later on when you're level 11 and can get the exploration XP at that point. But it gets you almost all the XP that's available in there, so it's still a really useful outcome. I just find this hilarious. So, we have at this point killed the gate guards and the hobbits they were torturing, killed all the kobolds that aren't inside barrels in there in that exploration XP zone, and gone up above and killed off the eagles without going on to the roof. So we've carefully avoided various exploration XP things. Now, that is as far as you can get in this area without getting some exploration XP. There are now 2 ways into the Githyanki Creche. Either via the main entrance, which will tend to give you 2 big exploration XPs, but I found a way to avoid one of those, or via the side entrance, that is, going down this hidden path here. That gives you 1 small exploration XP, and then normally you'll get the big one soon thereafter. But, after completing this run, I did find an absurdly complicated way that you could actually go through that side entrance and save the big exploration XP zone later on. So I will talk about those 2 ways into the Creche, but either way, at this point, I think you're actually better served going to Moonrise Towers first. Alright, so here we are in the room where you can place the ceremonial weapons to get a bit of XP and, more importantly, on a normal run, get a powerful radiant damage boost for the rest of the day. But this is also where I found a way you can sneak into the Githyanki Creche without getting the main Rosymorn Monastery exploration XP. So we walk out onto this balcony area, then move the camera around carefully. You see those stairs there that are almost blocked by the bush? We need to get onto those stairs without going anywhere near that kind of left-ish area. So we get out something like a fly potion, for example, and we'll drink that. Then we need to find a path where our flying arc hooks to the right rather than the left. That looks good to me.
Within the artifact of...
There we go. So we've avoided going up in that area where we would get the exploration XP. Then we walk down here, and that takes us into the main Githyanki entrance area. You just heard a chime there. I think that was getting the big exploration zone for the main Githyanki entrance. But we've saved the Rosymorn stuff.
Sentries to all!
Let's talk through this, and I'll show you the boundaries, as far as I can tell, of where the exploration zone is. So we can talk about how to avoid it via the other method.
Perhaps the new seek the...
So, basically, the big exploration zone for the entrance of the Githyanki Creche sort of begins like right at the edge of that balcony up there. If you step out into this, you get it. If you're like over here, you're probably okay. It also happens over here. The camera is making it hard to see, but it kind of begins earlier here. You can't get to the edge like you can on this side. Then it extends all the way through this area, and it extends through this room, out beyond these guys to about this point, roughly, and then over to there, and then also over, hereabouts, and then over to here. So really it covers a huge, huge swath of territory. That's all exploration zone. And over to about here, roughly on this side. So you can see really that it's pretty much impossible to avoid that while doing anything in the Creche. But I did find an extremely expensive and silly way to do it. Alright, so that's the best main entrance way into the Githyanki Creche. That lets you save the XP for Rosymorn Monastery and the side entrance indefinitely and do those at level 11. But After doing this run, I did find another quite expensive and cumbersome way that you can actually get into the Githyanki Creche via the side entrance and avoid the main entrance entirely, despite it being such a massive area. So I'll show you that now. First of all, we just go to the side entrance. Obvious enough, I think. So there is the side entrance, XP. Then we'll go through the door here. And, talk your way past those guys or whatever. And then we'll talk about how to get the rest of the XP from in here. So, there are 4 gate guards in here, but of course if we go in there we get the exploration XP. So what we do instead is, climb up on here and then do something like attack that guy across the way with an arrow or whatever, and then walk backwards so they're all forced to fight us over here. If we go over here, I'll show how we can kind of maneuver our way deeper in. But probably only with one character at a time, unless you have a massive quantity of scrolls of Misty Step or Dimension Door or arrows of transposition. So from here, if we step a little bit further, we'll get the XP. We don't want that. We want to be able to go over there to deal with the captain, we want to be able to go over there, but all of this is still the exploration XP zone. There's not a great way around it from here. But what we can do is, first of all, get over to there. Let's use maybe a Misty Step for that. Okay, so we've gotten over here. We can now theoretically go deal with the captain and do that special thing where we will open up the door in the right way and antagonize the 5 guys within. But that won't be easy because you don't have your full party here, really. So, it'll be tough to manage that. Maybe doable. But then we can also now teleport to the waypoint that we just unlocked. Alright. After teleporting to the waypoint, I had an idea and respec to Sorcerer to see if Distant Spell could help here. It can't, so don't bother with that. Now, we must be very careful where we walk, because if we go in any direction, including back where we just came from, we'll get the exploration XP. But what we can do is get out something like Dimension Door, and pick ourselves here, hypothetically. You can bring one teammate with you, and then get over to about there. It's got to be well past those 2 young Githyanki. There we go. So we avoided the exploration XP. We can now, shoot them or whatever and begin a fight, and then run over in this direction and battle guys here. Over there is the hatchery. I'll talk about a trick for that. That has its own exploration XP zone, so, watch out. Then we can use another teleport to get back over here and do the schoolroom stuff. Remember, as I've said before, to talk them into sparing Varl, then get his Orpheus chunk thing, and then KO him or kill him or whatever. And then we can get back over here and use more Misty Steps to get over to the captain's side of things if we have to, and so forth. My point being, if you use a lot of teleports, you can avoid this exploration zone, but it sure is cumbersome and expensive if you aren't just made out of Misty Step scrolls and Dimension Door scrolls and things like that. But, for purposes of maximizing XP, you can do it, and it would be an optimization I did not do on this run. So you come out a little bit ahead of where I was. Now, the Creche itself has some exploration XP areas you want to be careful about. They're not really where you'd expect necessarily. One of them, for example, is over here in the Githyanki egg chamber for some reason. So, we want ideally to save that for level 11, although it does mean delaying the egg quest too. That's a very minor thing. We want to pull out these guards and have them fight us more conveniently. What you want to do probably is find a very careful position for something like Fireball to aggro that guy that won't put you around the corner of the doorway. That should be just barely good. We stealth over there, that's weird, but he should spot us now. There we go. All 3 aggroed, but then just pull back from the door, they come to us, and we kill them. In a similar vein, after you've dealt with the Githyanki captain back in her quarters, you come over here to where the Inquisitor is waiting for you. But, through that doorway is, you guessed it, more exploration XP that we want to save. So, we're going to just stand over here and shoot someone in the face and aggro them all that way. and they can come walking out of here, and they can fight us in the open space. We get the XP from them that way, while saving the exploration for later on. There were actually several nested exploration zones that we're avoiding all at once here, by the way. Besides this one here for just walking into the Inquisitor's boss room, the Planecaster itself is also another source of exploration XP when we go through that, and so is the Blood of Lathander area when we go through that over there. So we'll save all those things to level 11 to really max them out. Note, by the way, that the trigger for these elite Gith showing up here to fight you near the road to Baldur's Gate in the Shadowcursed lands is not going through the Planecaster, but just having defeated Wargargaz, the Inquisitor. So at that point, you're free to come back over here and fight these guys who are worth quite a lot of XP. Now, I recommend going to Moonrise before going into either the Githyanki Creche, or Grymforge, or into the Gauntlet of Shar, because I think the ratio of XP within divided by the exploration XP that you're getting early is the most favorable for Moonrise. Here is what I recommend for how to get Moonrise Tower's exploration XP. Come here with Shovel, and prepare to have Shovel run down this bridge and go through that doorway. But once you go through that doorway, Zealot Krizzed down here at the docks will be vanishing. We don't want that. So, have another party member sneak off in the direction of the docks. Go through the toll house and just walk around toward where she'll be waiting. And our goal is to lock her into turn-based mode so that she can't go away without ever going too close to the docks, because that will somehow ruin the exploration XP. The thing is, Minthara, assuming she's alive, will be in the throne room area waiting to be judged. And the trouble is that throne room area is also in the exploration XP zone. And so Minthara will just eat the exploration XP and bug it and you can't get it then. Quite a nuisance. Minthara, for some reason, will not load into existence if you have Shovel go that way. So that's the key and why Shovel makes it possible. Alright, I think that's Kriz locked in. What we're going to do now is go back to Shovel. I called Fork in this version, never mind that. Ignore this unimportant traveler, run through the gates. And once we get the exploration XP, we'll then switch back to main character over there and make sure we get Krizzed. This is just a demonstration, by the way. This party is nowhere near as high level as they should be, but it's a party that I made that didn't have Will.
Best be on my way.
Okay, Chris is trying to get away, but can't allow that to happen. We've got to pursue her. Run, 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 run. Okay. Now we can bring the rest of the party over and have a fight here and so forth. So, after we've dealt with the emergency of making sure that we kill Zealot Kriz before she can just walk off screen and die off screen, you might need to run away to break combat because you need to have Acolyte Marls alive for this next trick. So we inspect the cargo over here.
Tadpoles.
Find it's full of tadpoles.
And feels a legion of echoes in response. A pattern asleep and it's not.
Okay. And then you have anyone who has their Illithid persuasion power available talk to Marls about that.
I'm afraid you missed the ship, Truebsy, but there'll be another along soon enough.
So we tell him the cargo is unusual.
As the symbol glows,
We make him think about it.
it's through you. Authority. A shiver runs across your mind.
And then switch out to someone else and stop time.
As you bear down a tap.
Because he'll now try to go jump into the river, which will kill him.
In the parasites.
We get inspiration for that happening for the Dark Urge. But if he can't actually make it to the water because he's stuck in turn-based mode, then we can also just kill him, which is worth more XP. This will then start a fight, but that's fine. Killing the people in the docks here has absolutely zero bearing on anything inside Moonrise Towers. After that, don't forget to carefully break open this crate in a way where you can kill the escaping tadpole that is worth an absurd amount of XP. Well, once you are done with the docks and with getting the exploration XP, go ahead and kill the front gate guards. As long as you don't tell them that you're here to kill them, no one inside cares.
Used to your new look yet?
One useful trick in here is that if you're invisible or whatever, you can basically just ignore the whole hubbub in the throne room, run on through, and the top of the tower is your oyster, with almost no one to guard it, and no one down below making a fuss. This doesn't really get you more total XP, but it gets you XP earlier in the game. For example, you can just go right on up here, right past Radija, and up onto the roof. And then you can fight people that would normally battle you with Ketheric without him there to back them up. And for any reasonably strong character, Sustera and a couple of Necromites are pushovers. You can also see down below there the group of pretty secret flying ghouls, so once you've mopped people up here, you can just pop on down and kill the flying ghouls and get a ton of early XP here. One minor thing, which I didn't do in my previous run, but do recommend, is once you've got all of the racial blood elixirs from Araj, go right ahead and kill her. She's worth 90 XP, and that means she won't show up in Act 3, but she's pretty worthless in Act 3. And it's pretty easy to justify in character. She's one of the evilest characters in the game, really. As long as you don't allow a scrying eye to sound the alarm, you can pretty much wipe out everyone in Moonrise Towers who isn't in the throne room without any consequences to the people that are in the throne room, and save that interaction for the appropriate time. Alright, let's talk about the Moonrise Towers throne room. Now, as I have mentioned, I discovered after doing this run that if you spare Saza in Act 1, she will ruin getting the Moonrise Towers XP for you. So she shouldn't be here. This represents me not knowing what I was doing as perfectly as I do now. But these three will be here. And normally what happens is a cutscene where Dren tries to kill Ketheric, fails, and Ketheric kills Dren. Now, Dren is worth 110 XP if you kill her yourself. But there's a problem with that. Or actually there's a whole bunch of problems with that. So basically, if you kill Dren, you get pulled into a cutscene as if you just attacked Ketheric, and then everyone in Moonrise becomes hostile to you. Now, that causes lots of issues. For one thing, you lose access to merchants, you can never access the secret inventory of Lantarv over there, and you can't properly rescue Minthara anymore. She'll become untalkable, and that costs you XP, plus it costs you Minthara. You can't turn in a quest to Z'rell, so that sucks. And you miss out on some Dark Urge inspiration that you normally get if you go through with the cutscene and then say, yeah, I'll kill the goblins myself. Okay, so those are all pretty catastrophic downsides, really. But I spent a while trying to find, is there a way to avoid that cutscene so that we can kill Dren, but can then also do everything else? And as far as I can tell, the answer is no. I have tried some elaborate and just insanely weird things, and it's no good. I've tried basic things like me being silenced and Ketheric being silenced, no good, he starts the cutscene. I've tried me being in gaseous form, which often shuts down cutscenes, no good, cutscene continues. I've tried carrying Dren off to another waypoint, and then fast traveling back and forth and things like that, so that hopefully Ketheric will be out of the game files, and then killing her. No good, you get pulled into the cutscene. I also tried, and this is the closest that I got to things working, having someone invisible go in, grab Minthara, carry her all the way out to the bridge so she won't get pulled into any kind of combat. Then have my party down but not kill my main character somewhere outside of combat. But have the main character have a powerful summon like an air elemental. That will stay around. Everyone else goes to camp. So now we have the unconscious body of a main character lying somewhere, and he has one summon still present, everything else is in camp, Minthara is elsewhere, then have the summon go in, invisibly, and kill Dren. That skips the cutscene. But everyone still becomes hostile, so there's still no benefit to it. So, regardless of logic, as far as I can tell, if you attack Dren in any way, you will break a bunch of things for yourself. So, therefore, I think the best way to handle this is just to go through the cutscene and cooperate and then say that you'll kill them yourself so as to get the XP for that.
Not be slandered.
So pick this option so you can fight them. That way you get XP for them, and you get this inspiration for the Dark Urge too. If you can find a way to kill Dren without making everyone in Moonrise hostile, let me know. That would be quite handy. It would net you out plus 60 XP here. Now let's talk about one important thing that happens when you do the rescue quest at last. This guy Harper Arthus pops out to check that everyone is, in fact, not infected. Harper Arthus only exists for this one cutscene. So let him inspect them, let everyone start going their separate ways, then before he can walk off into nothingness and just vanish forever, make sure to take him out. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is help Marcus capture Isobel, but do it right. First of all, I've talked about how to save everyone if Isobel is killed or captured. I have a guide video all about that, but the short version of it basically is grab everyone with improvised weapon and teleport them out to somewhere safe first. Then when Isobel is killed or captured, nothing bad happens to them, and they'll still be around in Act 3 or available for the rest of Act 2 and so forth. But to maximize XP here, we want to help Marcus with the capture.
What's going on? If you have something to say, you do.
But we're actually going to go and kill all his ghouls because, they're worth XP.
Come on, can't stay idle.
Now, I didn't actually clear the inn here for this demonstration, but you would want to do that. Clear out the entire inn, make sure that everyone here that you want to save is alright. And then you just go around and you shoot dead all the winged horrors. For the sake of speed and simplicity here, I'm not going to bother actually hunting down all the winged horrors or carrying everyone out of the inn to safety. I'm going to just skip to knocking out Isobel. So Marcus will fly away with her, the anti-Shadow Curse bubble pops, and at that point everyone in the inn is instantly dead, and anyone outside it is turned into shadow creatures. But that's beneficial to us if we've gotten everyone out, because it'll actually be perfectly fine, and we can still talk with them and whatever. And furthermore, now some new enemies will pop up that we can also fight that are otherwise unobtainable. All told, these new enemies plus Isobel are worth 595 XP. Pretty substantial. But helping Marcus is also worth 175 when we turn in the quest to Zrel momentarily.
What in the nine hells happened? I see little more than a cowardly... Isobel is gone.
We can still side with Jaheira here. If you want to kill Jaheira, you can do that at this point. It's worth 75 Dark Arts Inspiration, worth no other XP other than that. I wouldn't really do it, but you could do that. There we go. Once you thin the herd a lot, then the Shadow Curse vines pop out. And now some more, and this is the final wave of them, I believe. So, yeah, there you go. Basically, if you knock out Isobel, you can fight these Shadow Curse vines that are otherwise unavailable. You can handle Jaheira however makes sense for your run. One other notable thing is, the Shadow Curse being let into the inn is kind of a one-time thing, seemingly. After this moment, if you then rescue people, like say Barkus being rescued from Grymforge, he'll be just fine. He'll just pop up in the middle of the inn, perfectly unharmed. So you can do things in that order, and there's no downside to it. Just a quick demonstration here that if you have gone through with the capture, then talking to Zrel gives you 175 XP for turning in the quest.
And before I even ordered you to do so. Trying to make... Rescued, abducted, and this... Balthazar is still missing.
And then at this point, you can freely knock out Marcus and Zrel, no problem. Now, there is one catch, possibly, that I'm still trying to figure out. See, sometimes, after you have defeated Ketheric, there'll be a big party going on in Moonrise downstairs. And you'll have there a bunch of generic no-name flaming fists and things like that. And you can then knock them out for a total of 660 XP. Quite a bit. But they aren't always there. And I can't figure out why not. I don't think that having killed or captured Isobel precludes them from showing up, but I'm not sure. Even if that is the case, it's still a net positive overall, but I wish I could figure out with testing what the cause of this no-name guys being there is. If you know, let me know. I have not been able to find it out with various runs so far. Two quick goblin-related things to talk about. After you finish rescuing Minthara, you can meet this guy Glomp the Looter back here in the Act 1 Goblin Camp. He's a merchant who sells a lot of the same stuff that the original Goblin merchant here sold, without the special items, as I recollect. But the other important thing about him is just that he's Goblin trash, so, you know, buy what you want from him and then just kill him. 10 XP right there. Now, one more bit of Goblin-related XP is hard to find a good spot for in this video. It would have gone in part 1, but it didn't exist at that time as far as I can tell. It looks like as of patch 8, when you have finished the Goblin Siege, if you then long rest, these 4 goblins will just inexplicably pop up here, attacking the druids in the grove. And if you kill them, they're worth a total of 60 XP. As far as I can tell, your choices up until this point don't really impact much whether they're here or not. Now, of course, I didn't have this XP when I was doing the run because this bug hadn't been introduced yet, but here it is, now you know about it. Let me know if you find any particular things that govern whether these goblins show up or not. In all my tests, once you've done the Goblin Siege, if you long rest once, they'll be here. But maybe there's some other variable that is also required. So that covers my set of tricks for Moonrise Towers. We've already been through the ones for saving exploration XP and so forth in the Githyanki Creche. Let's now talk about the Gauntlet of Shar. So this section here is, I think, the only thing in this guide that is luck-based. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but basically, there are 3 battles here with these umbral tremors. There's one in the library, that's a small one. There's this giant one here outside Balthazar's hideout. And there's one earlier one up near the first waypoint that you get to when you first meet Balthazar's skeletal guys. So the thing is, basically, there are 3 kinds of Justiciars that can randomly spawn. There are Avengers, there are Soul Hunters, and there are the seemingly rarer Nightweavers. And just due to a bug, all the Justiciars give you XP, except that spawned Soul Hunters don't. So we got 60 for that one, but we will get nothing for this Soul Hunter over there.
You first.
As you can see, we got nothing. So, as I said, blind luck. It just depends how many Soul Hunters spawn. If you save scum, you can tilt things a bit in your favor. There are so many portals that you probably can't get down to 0 Soul Hunters without an absurd number of reloads, but if you end up getting, let's say in total over the course of 3 battles, 9 or fewer Soul Hunters, you're doing pretty well. That's about 3 better than average, I would say, so about 180 XP earned that way. As I've mentioned with the Thorm relatives, you, for some weird backward reason, get extra XP if you talk the Orthon to death and get him to kill himself compared to if you actually kill him. I don't know why, you'd think the Dark Urge would get the inspiration for doing the murder, but you don't. You get inspiration for having him kill himself in dialogue, which is really boring compared to battling him, but that's the way it is. So, what we're going to try to do then is get the Sage inspiration for this rat battle after having done the Dark Urge inspiration for the Orthon talking himself to death. Do that, pass that XP to Gale, then you're near the end of all the Dark Urge inspiration that's available, so at that point you can then start doing things like this rat battle that gives Sage inspiration. That wraps it up for the Gauntlet of Shar. Just save the actual Shadowfell for later, we're heading to Grymforge now. I've found a few new tricks in addition to those that I talked about in the previous video. So first of all, there were 2 exploration zones in Grymforge. There's one as you get off the boat over there, that triggers immediately when you arrive. And then also there's one on the path to the Adamantine Forge itself. I'll show you roughly where that is. We'll want to delay that one as much as possible until we get to level 11, if we can. A few new tricks that I found though. One of them is over here. We've got the Harper's stash treasure that we can find down there, based on a note that we can read. There'll be a little toy chest you can hit.
That might be worth a look.
That spawns in this chest. This chest is booby-trapped. You can disarm that either conventionally or by casting light on it. Either way works. Then if you open it, once you open it you get 35 XP. I probably had this XP on my previous run, but I discovered how it works at least while doing experimentation here. Alright, so over here at the Ancient Forge waypoint, we have the path down to the Adamantine Forge there. And as we get partway down that path, we'll get a medium-sized exploration XP. I don't think we can get to Grym himself without triggering that, which is unfortunate because Grym is worth a decent amount of XP. But we can avoid triggering it while we manage to fight the Mephits over thereabouts and the Lava Elemental over here. All we have to do basically is just get over to hereabouts and use Featherfall to just jump down there. Around here, you can have someone jump or fly down to there that will spawn in the Mephits, and everyone else from up here can just destroy them with ranged attacks and you get their XP that way. So literally as I was editing together this section about how I couldn't find a way to avoid the Adamantine Forge when while fighting Grym, I thought of a way. Get over to here and carefully don't walk too far, then do a dimension door. There we go. No exploration XP. Then we hit this button and get out from underneath the lowering platform. And it turns out that the exploration zone only exists at certain Z levels basically. So up above, if we'd walked onto the forge, we would have gotten exploration XP. But now we don't. This is a pretty powerful trick, because Grym and his magma Mephits are worth quite a lot of XP. So, one bit of XP that is not really too secret or anything, but I just happened to not get in the previous run, is knocking out Philomeen. Doesn't really matter exactly how you do it, and Philomeen's not that important, so if you killed her, nothing bad would really happen anyway.
Explain!
One not so obvious bit of XP is here. Once you have freed Nere, he'd come running out, and then in a cutscene he's going to murder Meerna, the gnome over there. Of course, if we were to kill Meerna ourselves, she's worth an absurdly high 75 for some reason. But you don't actually want to do it this way, because that provokes a fight with everyone, which, I mean, that's fine and good. I love fights with everyone. But the problem with it is that deprives you a bit of XP compared to if you sided with one group or the other, which we'll talk about in a bit. But the trouble, of course, is that, how else will you get the XP from killing Meerna? There's not really an obvious way to do it. But I found a non-obvious way to do it instead. So, what we'll want to do is collect lots of wooden crates and trunks from around Grymforge. There are tons of them. We especially want the big rectangular trunks. Get like 20 of them if you can. You don't need that many, but having spares will be quite useful. Then we go to the Ancient Forge waypoint here, and we will walk on over back here to the area where we got one of the mithril ores. Then with 2 people, you can make 2 giant stacks of crates like this, using one smaller stack to then build the other stack even higher up. Then you have someone climb up onto the top of the highest stack of crates. About 9 high will do, roughly. And then depending on your positioning exactly, you can use either a super long jump or a fly or a misty step and get over to the other side here. There we go. This is the place where they'll tell you they aren't able to get down to the Shar Temple, even though we have like 12 spells that could get us down there safely. Anyway, through this door is where we'll find Nere and Meerna just kind of staring into space. What we want to do is just get on in there and walk up and maybe flurry of blows Meerna to death.
Murderous actions.
That will start a fight, and then you can escape with invisibility and a teleport or going out to the waypoint or whatever.
Intention was to make things.
So we'll drink an invisibility potion, let's say. And then all we have to do is just walk on out of here. Then we can just waypoint to anywhere else in Grymforge, and then you free in the normal way, and all is forgiven. And you got the XP. I have done a lot of crazy and silly things for XP. I think that might about take the cake. But let's now free Nere from his rock fall. He'll come walking out. There we go. And even though she's already dead, she'll get killed again. Very strange.
Finally. Nere does not.
Now, I used to recommend that you make the deal with Brithvar, the dwarf, then help Brithvar during this fight, but during the middle of it, kill Brithvar, so that a new dwarf shows up to replace him, and then take out all the dwarves after that, thereby netting out 75 more XP than you would get normally. But overall, I think that you actually get the very most if you instead side with Nere at first, take out all the dwarves, including his allies or whatever, then betray him after that, and take him out once he's on his own. Oh, one last thought, by the way. Not here, but after you've rescued Barcus and brought him to talk to Wolverine, which again, is perfectly fine if that happens in the Shadow Curse version of the inn, that's fine, as long as none of them were in it when it got cursed. But yeah, once the two of them have talked and resolved their quest, find a chance to knock out Barcus for 20 XP. By this point, you should be level 11, given that there's now more XP known about than when I first began this run. I got to level 10.999 or so on my main character, but then I thought of something, which is, when you go to an exploration zone, the XP you get is based on, I guess you could call it the average level of the party rounded up. Which means if you have only 2 people in the party, and one of them is level 11 and one of them is level 10, then in that case, you get XP like a party of level 11. Doesn't matter whether it's the main character or not. So, I got my Sage character Gale up to the same XP as the Dark Urge, and then I went and grabbed a couple of Sage exploration XPs I'd been saving, like studying the skeletons over there, or identifying the plaques in the Druid Grove, or the Moon puzzle back in the room in the Goblin Temple and so forth. That got Gale up to level 11, so at that point I booted out everyone else from the party, and that put the overall party's effective level for exploration XP at 11. We've talked about the exploration XP areas before, but to go through the list again, you can go to this natural bridge near the Overrun Ruins waypoint, and over in the Emerald Grove you can go up to where the Harpies were and go out to the treasure chest back past the Harpy fight area. That has XP too. With the tricks that I found, Withers' tomb is now also savable, so go back and get that. Then you can go to the Zentrum hideout under Joaquin's Rest and ride their secret elevator down to the Underdark. That's exploration XP there. In the Myconid colony, there are actually 2, plus a little bit of quest XP you can get when you go into the reward chamber over there. And then there's also the Arcane Tower front door area. That has exploration XP as well. Then there's the Path of Secret Mushrooms that goes up to the Hag's Lair near the Arcane Tower. Going through there gives you 2 exploration rewards. In the Mountain Pass area, we still haven't actually got the waypoint over there, because that has a big exploration area, so get that now. And then it's time to go behind the main doors here in Rosymorn, which also has exploration XP. And don't forget this, there is a book you want to read about Lathander and the Blood of Lathander that is worth a bit of quest XP, so make sure to pick that up. And you'll also want to go on in here and get the exploration XP for the Kobold room, and also kill all the Kobolds that are in barrels back here. We still have those guys alive, so hunt all of those down. Go up to the Eagle's Nest area, and get the exploration XP for that, as well as for talking to the Blue Jay up there, and completing his little quest. Yay, 10 XP. Here in the Githyanki Creche, we'll want to go over to the nursery and get out the egg at long last and hand that back into Esther, completing that quest. Go into the Inquisitor's chamber over here and go back through there to the secret passageway to do the Blood of Lathander questline and so forth, and go through the Planecaster too, that also has an exploration reward. Which reminds me, after finishing the Planecaster thing, and thereby angering Vlokith or whatever, once you try to leave the Mountain Pass area, you'll be forced to rest if Voss is still alive from earlier, and Lae'zel is with the party and alive, and then Voss will show up in camp with his raider, who you can take out for 75 XP at this point. And we mustn't forget, of course, that you've either saved the side entrance of the Githyanki Creche till this point, or you were saving the main entrance, so take care of that either way. Now it's about time to leave the Act 1 stuff behind forever, so we take this chance to knock out Blurg and Omeluum and Dareth and so forth. And then it's time to move on to the Gauntlet of Shar. It's about time for the point of no return now, going to the Shadowfell. So make sure you haven't forgotten anything in Act 1, and then get Shadowheart into the party. If you have her come along and have her spare Aelin, you get the most possible XP from the interactions here at the bottom of the Shadowfell. 175 more than I'd gotten on my previous run. Then it's about time to get the last few bits of Sage Inspiration available in Act 2. Have someone who you don't care about making attacks stupidly put their arm into the cracked wall and get pulled down to the Mind Flayer colony. That gives you inspiration. Out in Wraithwind Town, go down underneath the Shar and Sanctuary beneath the statues there. Go into the back room and do the blood ritual there. That gives sages inspiration. Go to Balthazar's room and unlock his secret lab. You can get 120 XP from 2 inspirations if you do that right, solving the puzzle there. In the Mind Flayer colony, after freeing Zevlor and Shurga, there she is, make sure to knock them both out. They're worth a substantial 445 XP between them. So, on my version of this run, that got me to here, at the end of Act 2, almost level 12. But, because of my careful inspiration management, Gale is a little bit closer to level 12, and I've saved all the Sage Inspiration XP books. And guess what? I've got just enough that if I start reading them now, I'll get Gale to level 12. There are, by my count, about 380 Sage Inspiration XP to be found by reading various books at the right time. So, there we go. Gale level 12, we've got a character level 12 in Act 2. But, with all the XP that I found after first recording this, there's about another 1,000 or so to be had, maybe a little more. So, with that information, you should have enough of a bonus and a buffer to get to level 12 on your entire party by this point. So that's just about the end. Level 12 in Act 2 for the first time. But I did think of one last silly thing we can do here. For my last little trick, I'm going to make Withers disappear. Now, as we all know, Withers is impervious to any attack. But he does have one weakness I've found. If you have the Illithid Power ability drain and start hitting him with int-draining cantrips, such as pretty much anything cast by a wizard or a high elf, you can drain his intelligence down to 1. There he is at 1. And now with the new power we just unlocked here, Absorb Intellect, we reduce his int to 0, and Withers is permadead. 10 XP for killing a god there. Is that worth it? Heck no. But I would have been remiss in not showing you that one last trick, don't you think? That is truly all the ways I can think of to maximize XP in the first 2 acts of the game. So, there you have it. I think my next big project will be making one consolidated ultimate guide to all this stuff, instead of my tricks being spread out over the course of several different videos of discoveries. I might find some new things between now and then too. And of course, if you have any new tricks or suggestions or ideas, let me know. I'd be happy to hear them. Thank you for watching, everyone. And a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. The Irreverent Reverend, MasterKnightDH, Jackie, Enlino, Travis, Andrew Curzon, Truebsy, Oliver, Chronische, Jago, David Kovjanov, Gregory, Broken Box, Jenna M, Just Becca, Jack, Nubiana, Nicholas Schmuck, Kostya Nesterovich, Frederick Brune, Emperor Kong 420, Robin, Stefan Von Zill, Eddie, Meerna, Ali Kasimoglu, Skylar Sauce, Nick Myers, Emp Ninjas, Chupaton, Diabetic Cat, Marvin Fang, Max, Afro Zamurai, Lodestone, Bic Mars, Brad, IJ23, Rodrigo Lopez Dato, The Coding Owl, Silent, Eldridge, Zadira, Wisconsin Cheese Wizard, Peanut Butter 89, and Nicholas Halden. Have a great day, everyone.